Importing talent from other regions has been a central component of the NA playbook for several years. It feels like every year we get fewer and fewer North American rookies and more players flying in from other parts of the world. With travel restrictions and tightening of immigration policies around the world due to the COVID-19 pandemic, many of us assumed that the LCS would be forced to rely on more homegrown talent in 2021. But while we are going to be seeing a lot more NA rookies, the flood of imports has also continued. Within the LCS's 50 starting players for the 2021 spring split, there are 15 players with import status. That's 30% of the total league, which is a pretty high number considering that the maximum theoretical import rate is 40% if every team was starting the 2 imports that the rule set allows. The interesting question, though, is how that compares to the other Worlds qualifying leagues. Let's start with the 3 other major regions. The LCK doesn't import, it only exports. That's an easy one. The LEC has had its share of Korean imports in the past, but that trend has been on the way out for a while now, especially with G2 and Fnatic having so much success without relying on imported talent. With the European regional leagues ecosystem continuing to grow and more players making the jump from the ERLs and the EU Masters tournament into the LEC, we've seen imports all but disappear from Europe. In summer 2020, there were 4 imports in the LEC. One of them was Shadow, who could have declared European residency but chose to take Chinese residency because it might give him more future options. The others were Dreams and Trick from Korea, and Destiny from the OPL. None of those players are in the LEC for 2021. Instead, there are 5 imported players confirmed for the LEC's starting rosters this time around. Armut, Blue, and Broken Blade have Turkish residency, Zanzara has CIS residency, and Hyrit is the one player coming from Korea. That means only 10% of the LEC's players are imports, and that number could drop in the summer split if players with dual citizenship, like Blue and Broken Blade, choose to change their residency once they're eligible. The LPL imports players pretty routinely, mostly from South Korea, but even they make imports a pretty small component of their overall player base. The LPL's 2021 rosters aren't finalized yet, but in summer 2020 there were 118 players distributed across the LPL's 18 teams, and 25 of those were imports, or 21%. Of that group, 17 were from Korea, by the way. So the LCS is the most active importing league among the major regions by a pretty noticeable margin. What about the rest of the World's qualifying regions? There's actually one region that had an import rate above 30% in summer 2020. Japan's LJL had a 34% import rate, all South Korean. The rest of the leagues tend to sit somewhere between 7 and 20%, with the Vietnamese league joining the LCK with 0 imports. But here's where the picture gets a lot more colorful for the LCS. You have to consider how many naturalized players there are in the league, meaning players who are allowed to declare North American residency under a previous rule set that allowed players to change residency after 4 years playing in another region, or due to receiving a US green card or other equivalent permanent residence status in one of the countries in the region. The list of those players includes Impact, Jensen, Svenskeren, Huhi, and others. Then you also need to add in the new 2021 rule change that allows Oceanic players to count as residents in the LCS, which applies to players who are already in the LCS like FBI, as well as newcomers like Fudge and Destiny. When you make those adjustments and look at the original residencies of the LCS's 2021 starting rosters, there's a slight shift. Actually, fewer than half of the LCS starters for 2021 will be original NA residents. There will be 18 different countries of birth represented in the LCS, only 2 of which are part of North America. So much for relying on homegrown talent. Importing has paid off for some LCS orgs and backfired for others. For every Bjergsen or Power of Evil, there have been 3 or 4 other imports who just kind of fizzled out. Even with those failures, it seems like the allure of landing the next core JJ is too strong for most NA orgs to pass up. I think we can say pretty confidently that the LCS's appetite for imported talent is not going away anytime soon.
Wasn't that just a great piece of content? Didn't you just look at that video and say to yourself, wow, I'm so glad that I'm subscribed to this channel. What? You're not subscribed yet? Well, maybe you are. But if you are, maybe you can hit the bell. If you aren't, maybe you could subscribe, because I'm trying to... For a while, I stalled out. I was not getting any subscribers. And then I am now. And that feels great, because I got to go talk to Alienware about 2021 and hope that they renew. And the more subscribers I have, I feel like the more likely they're going to be down to do that. By the way, they are not going to renew unless I tell you about the fact that there's a link in the video description below. Alienware.com/Travis. Click that link and then use Travis 10 off Q4 to find a great Alienware product. They make some cool stuff. I really appreciate everything they've given us. I'm actually using a 3090 right now in this computer because new PC that they got me. I'm going to be streaming Cyberpunk with it. I'm excited. Oh, yeah. Thanks for watching.